The Boston Bruins are taking way too many penalties, and as a result, their season is literally going up in flames.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. I'm your host, Ian McLaren. I am a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and I have been covering this team and the NHL for various major outlets for nearly 20 years. On today's episode, we are going to break down the storylines, stats, and significance of last night's 2-1 overtime loss to the Calgary Flames. The Bruins had an opportunity to win, but penalty issues reared its ugly head, and the Bruins were only able to come out of Calgary with a single point. Now they'll go to Edmonton to try to defeat the Oilers. Not looking too great these days for the Bruins. What is looking good is their prospects at the World Juniors. We'll also discuss James Hagens, Will Zellers, and their heroics so far for Team USA. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. And let's get into it today as we discuss the Bruins' 2-1 loss to the Calgary Flames last night and the constant rotation in and out of the penalty box really hurt them last night. It was a winnable game. The Boston Bruins were tied 1-1 with the Calgary Flames after 2 periods. They were tied after 3 periods. The Bruins were the better team in the third, giving up only 1 shot on goal in the final 20 minutes of regulation when the game was played at 5-on-5. The problem was they kept killing their own momentum and limiting their own opportunities by taking penalties, 3 of them in the third period. And of course, yesterday I discussed how Andrew Peeke was a problem defensively and how Jonathan Aspero, of all people, coming back into the lineup should help stabilize the blue line. As it happens, it was Andrew Peeke who scores the only goal last night for the Boston Bruins. And it was Aspero who took a high sticking penalty in the late seconds of the third period that led to Connor Zary scoring with 7 seconds left on the penalty in overtime to hand Boston its 6th straight loss. This came after Mark Kaseluk took a hooking penalty at the offensive blue line, second of the game for him. And then Hampus Lindholm took another penalty, a hooking penalty, during a battle where he had pretty good position. And those 2 guys have been 2 of Boston's worst offenders when it comes to minor penalties. They are 2 of 4 Bruins who rank in the top 50 in the NHL in minors taken this season, joined by Nikita Zadorov and Charlie McAvoy. And while the Bruins' penalty kill was perfect through Calgary's first 4 power plays of the night, it was the 5th, that penalty taken by Jonathan Aspero, that was the one that killed them. The Bruins did earn a point, but this was a winnable game against the Calgary Flames team that is below them in the standings. Marco Sturm afterwards said, a point is a point. We'll take it anytime on the road. Did we want to? Obviously. But again, he felt good about the point. I don't know if you can feel too good. A point, again, a point is a point. But there were 2 points available there. Although he did acknowledge the Flames have been pretty good at home, especially over the last 10 games as well. As they've said in many other loss recently, they want to build on it. They have to. Tough league. You have to sometimes start with the little things, blah, blah, blah. The reality is it was a missed opportunity. And it wasn't just the penalties and, giving up that late one that really hurt them. It was a lack of offense as well. If your only goal is coming from Andrew Peeke, then the offense is struggling. And this came after the Bruins mixed up the lines. Still didn't really help to generate much in the way offensively. Morgan Geekie's got a 4 or 5 game goal drought going on, despite being one of or the top scorer in the NHL this calendar year. David Pastrnak wasn't able to get on the board. Just a tough result all the way around. The Flames got the equalizer in the second period on a wrist shot from Blake Coleman, which ultimately forced overtime because both teams went scoreless in the third. But again, the Bruins were giving Calgary so many opportunities to take the lead in the third. And they're kind of lucky that they were able to get that single point, because they gave Calgary every opportunity to take it in the third, despite the fact that they had a 8-1 shot advantage in the third period. The Bruins taking those 3 penalties. The penalties, the penalty kill, it not only puts you at a man disadvantage, obviously, but it overtaxes your penalty killer players and it removes your top players from the ice. If you don't have David Pastrnak, Morgan Geekie out there as penalty killers, and you're putting out other guys in favor of them situationally, then that's a problem. You want Geekie, you want Pastrnak out there as much as possible in the third period. And when you're taking penalties, Kastelik, Lindholm, Aspero, very last second penalty for Aspero, you are taking those guys off the ice in the third period, and then you're not able to come back with them to begin overtime, where you should have your best players out there to begin overtime. Now you have to put out some penalty killers to begin overtime, which just further puts you behind the 8 ball. Just a very disappointing result for the Bruins. And while they did have some opportunities, they had some shots on goal in overtime, despite killing the penalty. Shots were 2-2 in overtime, but they weren't able to maximize that opportunity by putting out their best players. Swayman did make 19 saves on 20 shots, despite the fact that he gave up 2 goals. I think they were credited with an own goal on that one, but Swayman still was charged with 2 goals, but still at a .950 save percentage. Not really sure how that worked. But the big problem, again, was Boston's propensity to take careless penalties. And super unfortunate that they weren't able to come out with the 2 points in this one. They've surrendered at least 1 power play goal in 9 of their last 10 games. Their penalty kill did rank top 10 in the league earlier this season. It slipped to 19th, thanks to a 70% kill rate over the past 10 games. Way too many penalties for this team. Way too much time spent killing penalties. Shorthanded 4 or more times in 5 of these past 6 losses. And they've been shorthanded 152 times this season, 21 more than any other team. And when you're a team that is wild card at best, when you're a team that is trying to rediscover an identity, trying to be competitive, it's just not happening, especially when the offense is drying up. They've scored 2 goals or fewer 5 times during this 6-game losing streak. And Geekie, Pastrnak with 3 points over their last 6 games. Just not good enough at all. We'll take a look at some of the underlying numbers and where they stand 5-on-5 so far this season. But when you are taking all these penalties, you are getting Pastrnak and Geekie out of their rhythm. You're taking them off the ice, and you're just killing your playoff possibilities. It's a frustrating issue. It's a fixable issue. It's a problem they haven't been able to rectify dating back to last season. And if they can't clean it up, then they are going to suffer because their next opponent is the Edmonton Oilers, who have the NHL's best power play. We'll take a look at some of the more stats and the significance of last night's loss, as well as some positives in the performance of Will Zellers and James Hagens at the World Juniors. All that coming up here as the podcast continues. There's honestly nothing better than being in the stands during a game live. The speed, the hits, the atmosphere, unmatched. Watching at home is great, but being in the building is a completely different animal. The only thing that used to get in the way was actually getting tickets. Long lines, endless screens, prices that change at checkout. And that's why the Game Time app gives the advantage back to fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing NHL tickets and experience in just a few taps. I love the view from your seat, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive at the venue. The zone deals are clutch. Choose the section. Game Time picks the seats. You save even more, and there are no hidden fees. The price you see is the price you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Thank you again for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't done so already, please go check out the new Everydayer Club. You get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Boston Bruins, compatible with Apple, Spotify, Pocket Casts. You also get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. Go to lockedonbruins.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. All right. Last night's loss put the Bruins at a real disadvantage when it comes to trying to crack a playoff spot. They weren't able to generate much offensively. David Pastrnak with 4 shots on goal, followed by Victor Arvidsson with 4 for Pastrnak, 3 for Arvidsson, a bunch of other guys with 2 shots on goal each, but just not much in the way of offense at all. The Bruins went 0 for 3 on the power play, while the Flames went 1 for 4, and that was the difference in that one. And when you look at first the standings, it's not looking great for the Boston Bruins. In the Atlantic Division, and we'll do a quick power rankings update here as we do on Tuesdays, the Bruins are now 6th in terms of points, and they are at the bottom of the Atlantic in terms of point percentage. Very slightly behind the Toronto Maple Leafs, who are 17-5-6. The Bruins are 20-18-2. That's a 526 point percentage for the Leafs, 525 for the Bruins. The Leafs are 2 points back with 2 games in hand. The Senators 1 point back with 2 games in hand. The fact that the Bruins have played 40 games, which is tied for Detroit with the most in the division, only 42 points, slightly above 500, but 3-5-2 over their last 10, losers of 6 in a row, and they have dropped to the bottom of the division, thanks in part to not only the Leafs having a slightly better record over their past 10, but the Sabres, who were down in bottom, have now won 9 games in a row and have 2 more points than the Bruins with 2 games in hand. And in fact, they are only 5 points out of first in the Atlantic right now. The Bruins are only 7 points back of Detroit, only 4 points behind the Canadiens for third in the Atlantic, but they've played the most games, right? So the point percentage is killing them. Right now, they have the fewest or the lowest point percentage and the worst goal differential in the Atlantic Division. If you go conference wide, they are 15th in the East and have the tied for second worst goal differential. So this is looking like a team that is not going to be able to compete for a playoff spot, let alone compete if they make the playoffs. And it's so tough to make up ground. The Sabres, with their crazy run here, they are still just 8th when it comes to point percentage in the Eastern Conference and technically outside of a playoff spot. So that shows you how difficult it is to compete or to make up ground. If you're going point percentage wise, Atlantic Division power rankings, you've got Boston, then Toronto, Ottawa, Buffalo, going from 8th to 6th or 5th. Then the Panthers, the Canadiens, Red Wings, Lightning. The Bruins would have to pass all of these teams, or not all of them, but at least 6 of them to guarantee a playoff spot. And that's not even taking into consideration the Eastern Conference, where the Bruins are, again, or the Metropolitan Division, the Bruins are 0.001% away, or 0.1% away from being in the bottom of the Eastern Conference. That shows you how detrimental this swoon has been for them. And let's be honest, the underlying stats don't really point to much improvement. The Bruins, when it comes to 5-on-5 play this season, shot attempt differential, they rank 22nd at 5-on-5. When it comes to shot differential at 5-on-5, the Bruins rank also 22nd. When it comes to scoring chances at 5-on-5, this is differential, right? The Bruins rank 23rd. So they've generated 818 scoring chances, and they've allowed 888, which gives them a differential of 47.95. When it comes to high danger opportunities, and those are kind of right around the home base area around the net, the Bruins are 27th in the NHL with a high danger chance differential of 45.31%. You take all of that together and you can kind of look at expected goals. And the Bruins are 29th in the NHL right now in expected goals at 5-on-5, where the majority of the game is played. That means they're regularly being out-attempted, outshot, outchanced, and most problematic is the high danger chances where they are just at their worst, giving up too many high danger opportunities. Now, you look at their PDO, which is shooting percentage, save percentage. They're not really suffering from bad luck either. Like their shooting percentage 5-on-5 is around 9.25. Their save percentage is around 907, which adds up to an even 100 PDO. So this is basically who they are. This team is who they are. And I don't really see much in the way of hope when it comes to turning things around, to be quite honest. If you look at the expected goals differential in all situations, that includes penalties, penalty kill, etc., the Bruins are still 29th. And that's with a pretty good power play at their disposal. But it shows you the reality when it comes to how much they have been on the penalty kill, which is 236 minutes so far this season and 34 seconds. And that's going to really hurt you when it comes to being able to sustain any success that you're having. The Bruins we expected we're going to struggle to score. That hasn't necessarily been the biggest problem for them this season. They have 124 goals, which is kind of middle of the pack when it comes to the Eastern Conference, and that's only because there's a lot of teams around that mark. The Carolina Hurricanes have scored 129 goals. They're the number one team in the Eastern Conference. The defense, though, has been a problem. They have allowed a conference high 132 goals. And of those goals allowed, 29 have come on the penalty kill or giving other teams power play opportunities. 29 goals have come via penalties against this team this season. And that's going to hurt you. It is hurting the Bruins. And while the offense has been pretty good and they've gotten some good production from Morgan Geekie, David Pastrnak, some secondary guys as well, the reality is the penalties are killing them and they don't have the defensive wherewithal to withstand it. Even with Charlie McAvoy healthy, even with Hampus Lindholm healthy, Nikita Zadorov in there, that's a decent top three, but the secondary defensive players, they just haven't found that right mix. And if they don't fix that soon, and I don't know how they're going to do that, this team is what it is at the moment. Henry Jokiharju coming back, that's not going to change things too much. Jonathan Aspero, we hoped he would come back and help stabilize things. He took that penalty. Andrew Peeke, playing more like Andrew Peeke, the way he's scoring lately, but the defensive problems are still there. And now we're getting back into kind of sell mode for this team and wasting another year of David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, Jeremy Swayman's primes. I don't think, and this is a conversation for another day, but with those guys in the mix, you're not going into a full-on rebuild, but it's clear that that core isn't able to stack up against other kind of top cores around the NHL, and the secondary cast is not working out either. Anyways, their next opportunity to win will come tomorrow night against the Edmonton Oilers. It's a game we'll preview on tomorrow's podcast. Let's finish off with some more positives as we take a look at how James Hagens and Will Zellers are performing at the World Juniors here for Team USA. If we look at the state of the Boston Bruins right now, there are some bright spots that came from last season's downfall and the decision to sell at the trade deadline. And that came in the form of bottoming out, finishing very low in the standings, and drafting James Hagens at 7th overall. It also came with Charlie Coyle being sent to Colorado along with a 5th-round pick for Casey Middlestat, a 2nd-round pick, and prospect Will Zellers. And Hagens, Zellers are dominating the headlines for Team USA at the World Junior Championship. And on Monday night in Minnesota, the Bruins prospects stole the show. They left their fingerprints all over a 6-5 comeback win over Slovakia. James Hagens earned player of the game nomination, or earned player of the game, not just nomination. He was the player of the game, scoring 2 goals in the span of a minute and 3 seconds of game action. He tied the game at 4-4 with 45 seconds to go in the second period. And then he scored the 5th goal for Team USA just 18 seconds into the third period. And then Zellers scored the eventual game winner, 4:43 into the third period. He has now scored all 3 game winners for Team USA. He's up to 4 goals, 2 assists through 3 games. Again, all 3 of his goals have all stood as game winners. Hagens has 2 goals, 2 assists over that same stretch. 3 games so far for Team USA. And with the Bruins in a 6-game losing skid, we have some reason for optimism here, as Hagens, who could join the Bruins as early as the end of this college season, one of the top, he was rated at one point the top prospect in the 2025 NHL draft class. 18 points in 16 games at Boston College so far this season. Zellers has just been a revelation for the University of North Dakota, as well as for Team USA. Don't forget, he was a late addition to this team. He's got 10 goals in his first 18 games at North Dakota, and he's breaking out even more with Team USA. And it's a welcome sight for the Boston Bruins with some, not really much to cheer about these days. But when you add up the fact that Hagens, Zellers playing fantastic at the World Juniors, Dean Letourneau, who is now up to 11 goals and 19 points over 18 games at Boston College, things are looking pretty good for the Bruins. And I mean, it's getting to a point now. They've played 40 games, and the Bruins have only 42 points. It's going to come to a point now where we are looking more at the tankathon standings than the playoff standings. That's just the reality right now. Right now, the Bruins have the 9th best odds of securing the number 1 overall pick. They also have Toronto's first round pick. They're currently at 12th. And if we simulate the lottery at the moment, we would have Boston picking 9th, Toronto picking 12th. So we could have 2 pretty good picks. So it's coming to a point now. Are we rooting for the Bruins to fall, get another high pick, and look to the future? Or are we looking for the Bruins to bank on the Leafs, a bad pick, and the Bruins trying to remain competitive in the Eastern Conference? It's a real conversation to be had. You have to look at who could be sold. Victor Arvidsson, Andrew Peeke among the obvious favorites as impending unrestricted free agents. Are we looking at Casey Middlestat, Pavel Zacha as well to really maximize this window and try to be more competitive next season? It's a tough sell for guys like David Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, Jeremy Swayman, who have signed long-term. It's a tough look for Nikita Zadorov and Elias Lindholm, who signed here long-term last season with the view to competing with the Boston Bruins, not being part of a retool or a soft rebuild. For me, a full rebuild is just ripping up the foundation, starting over. So that would mean trading McAvoy, Swayman, Pastrnak, like everybody, and starting right from scratch with Hagens as your centerpiece. I don't think the Bruins are quite there. You probably will be renovating the kitchen, the living room, the bedrooms, trying to add an ensuite with that foundation still in place of really a 4-man foundation right now of Swayman, Geekie, Pastrnak, McAvoy. All that to say, the Bruins did great last season to add talent to their system. Zellers, Hagens, among those players. Will Moore, the second-round pick from Colorado in that trade. Fraser Minton, Murat Husnudinov, who are regulars in the lineup right now. They have an opportunity to add even more talent with 2 first-round picks this year, theirs and Toronto's, which is top 5 protected. And then next year, theirs and Florida's. My sense or my thought is try to maximize these 2 picks this season and then maybe use the Florida pick next season to add. Hopefully things are a bit more improved. You'll have Hagens in the lineup, and that will obviously add some talent down the middle for the Boston Bruins. Maybe you have Geekie, Hagens, Pastrnak as early as next season. All that to say, look, I'm a Canadian. I'm cheering for Team Canada at the World Juniors, but I'm very excited about what I'm seeing from Zellers and Hagens for Team USA. And I mean, it's an annual tournament. I don't care about it that much. I would love to see those two guys continue to thrive and dominate as a Bruins fan. Save the Canada gold medal for the Olympics. USA can have the World Juniors, especially if it means Hagens and Zellers continuing to break out in a big way. All right, that's today's episode, my friends. Lost last night, putting us in tank mode. A couple weeks ago, I was a big believer that they could remain competitive heading into that 5-game homestand. They blew it. They've lost 2 in a row to start the post-Christmas schedule. They have Edmonton on deck on New Year's Eve. We'll preview that game on tomorrow's podcast. I'm going to do a review of heated rivalry as well, bring you all the latest on the Boston Bruins. That's what we do here on the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Don't forget to check out the Everydayer Club at lockedonbruins.supercast.com. Get Locked On Boston Bruins ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and more. You can also check out the 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel next. If you're watching on video, on audio, make sure you transition over to the NHL Game Night podcast and the Locked On NHL feed. Follow along on TikTok, Instagram. I got to set up a Facebook page as well. We still get a lot of people over there, believe it or not, at Locked NHL Bruins, all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Take care of yourselves, friends. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you again here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.